Welcome to the Living Wholehearted podcast. We are Jeff and Terra Mattson, a husband and wife team who is shrinking the integrity gap in our own lives and helping others do the same. I'm a leadership and organizational development coach, and Terra is a licensed marriage and family therapist.
We believe that if you have a following, you are a leader, and how you lead matters. Whether you are leading in the home, work, or community, we are bringing you biblical, clinical, and relational wisdom to help you in every relationship that matters most to you. None of us do this perfectly, but we are leaning into the reality of our humanity and profound wisdom of grace. Well, we are well into 2024, and we are talking about relationships, the difference between healthy and unhealthy. And today we're going to talk about friendship. We've been talking about marriage and some of the more romantic sides of relationship. And really, friendship is one of the core parts of our journey in life. And those that have good friends actually have a systemic happiness. Harvard has some great research out on what it means to have good community. We know this from a biblical worldview, but we actually know this from a clinical worldview as well. And knowing how it impacts our peace and our joy and our mental health. And so we're going to talk about friendship. And I've got my friend and colleague, Connie Armerding, with me. She's one of our executive coaches and a dear friend. We've done all kinds of things together, from stewarding Courageous Girls to doing a huge conference a few years ago during COVID. We have quite a history of partnering together in both ministry, but also in life. So welcome, Connie.
Good to be here.
So talk first about let's just talk about the paradigms around friendship. We are two women. We're female leaders who are juggling a job outside the home as well as a job in the home, which there's plenty to do in the home as well. And there are a lot of our friends who are maybe stay-at-home moms who are doing full-time at home. And then we have some friends that don't have kids, and they're juggling their careers. We've got younger friends. We've got seasoned older friends who are empty nesters. There's friendships on all different levels, and they all look different. So let's start with just kind of, what do you think women are facing in general when it comes to just friendship and their stage of life?
Well, I think friendship is just crucial to health, as you mentioned. We need other people. We need other people in our lives to help us walk alongside the things that we face day to day. We need other people to help us understand more of who we are. I think our friends can be a mirror. The people close to us in our relationships can mirror back to us what is true about us, what we're saying, what we're feeling, so that we have an accurate picture of reality. And we don't want to be alone, right? I think there's so much research out, especially after going through a global pandemic, about just the negative effects of isolation and what can happen. So relationships are key. And I don't think that's news to anyone. I think we know that. But as we get older and we go through different phases and different seasons of our life, friendships change because sometimes our container changes or our capacity changes. So I think, first of all, understanding what season we're in, what we're wanting, what we're needing, and then being able to communicate that to the people in our lives that we're currently in relationship with, or the people we're pursuing in relationship, is understanding, I need this is important to me, but where does it fit and where do I have space? Because I think a challenge, personally, I'll speak personally for me and some of my relationship, is unset expectations. There's a true desire to connect. There's a true desire to invest. And then I'm in a really full season of my life with 4 kids, working, balancing home life. And so what I want to have happen doesn't always happen. But it's not that there's not a desire there. But first, I'm the only one who can do the work to figure out currently what season I'm in and what my capacity is. And then it's loving and kind as a friend to someone else to say, this is what I have, and this is where I want to meet you. But I think sometimes we miss each other there. There's a true desire. We want connection, but either we overextend and then we get burnout, and that there's a negative effect there, or our needs aren't being met, or there's a longing that we haven't voiced because we're scared. We're scared for what to think. So I think just the work for me in this season of friendship it's a lot different than previous seasons. My capacity is less, but I still have a clear need. But where where can I have that need met, and where can I communicate that to see if someone can meet me there? Because someone might not be able to meet me there, and that's okay. But just being able uh, to know that I need it, and what does it look like in this season, and to have grace for myself and for others as we navigate this new terrain.
Mm, it's so good, Connie. I actually wrote the book of Courageous, Being Daughters Rooted in Grace after at that time was about 16 years working in the confidential spaces, right, of counseling. And I was working with mostly high capacity women and men and their kids, their teens. And it was fascinating to me because I would sit with these really amazing people and realizing, on social media, they might look like they've got a lot of friends and they're well connected and networked, but they were desperately lonely. And so what's interesting, you mentioned COVID and the awareness of realizing how lonely we are, but honestly, we were lonely before COVID. The research was huge in us mental health professionals. And that's why I wrote Courageous was like, hey, women, you think that woman over there has too many friends or is well connected, but she is asked, she needs somebody to initiate just as much as you're longing to have someone initiate. And I think we have this image that it's going to just happen, kind of like love, right? Media shows like in 24 hours, you fall in love, our Hallmark addictions. But the reality is friendship requires fostering just like any other long-term healthy marriage. You have to foster it. You have to communicate all these things that you're like, you have to understand what are your expectations. And then I also think about understanding who I am and who my friend is. I have one friend who very clearly shared her expectations with me. She said, you know what? I love being with you, but I actually like it better when it's just you and I, because you're such a people person that when we're in the room with everyone, I don't always know my value in your life.
Mm.
But when we're one on one, I'm a quality, time person. And then in CBI wiring, this woman is a banker, innovator, and a builder. She's not a merchant. So it made sense to me and it was helpful. So I have to really intentionally to show her, I love you and I want this friendship, but having one-on-one time is going to be harder for us. So it's like rare, but
Mm.
she'll take it until maybe our kids are all launched but I'm like, you're going to get me more in groups because that's how life is right now in this season is I can touch point with friends a little bit more when a bunch of us are together. But I loved that she voiced her need, her expectations, and it really comes out of a lot of our own wirings and how we're made.
That's so good. So did that help you know how to love her better? I mean, what was the fruit of her? She communicated her expectations. You heard that and I'm hearing you say, okay, this is the capacity I have. It's going to be a little bit challenging. So what were the unique ways you met her there? Like to be able to honor what she's asking and then to also honor your season. What did that look like just practically?
Yeah, I thanked her. And, at first I could tell that I kind of felt a little failure, right? Like that
Mm.
normal feeling of, oops, I've been missing the mark here because this has been a way that I've been able to meet the needs of my friendship bucket by just gathering people together. And I like a good gathering. And I think it's more fun sometimes when several of us are together. I think it was C.S. Lewis who said, like, we get a different version of each other
Oh,
when there's more of us gathered together in the body. And so I lean into that. But I think we've been friends for 20 something years now. And I intentionally think, when was the last time we've had one-to-one? Okay, it's time. And it might take us 3 months on my schedule. I blame myself to get something on the books, but I am really intentional because I want her to know she's one of those friends that has been faithful through history. And if I don't pursue her in that way, then I'm not doing my giving. I'm just taking from her. And I want to be a healthy friend that is a give and a take.
mm.
So that has been something that probably the last 5 years since she said that, I just kind of every so often evaluate, like, have we had a one-to-one? A couple times a year is about as best we can get right now with the ages of our kiddos and our stage of life. But we take it and she appreciates it. She values it and thanks me for it all the time. So that helps too.
I love that.
So talk a little bit about, Connie, maybe when you think about myths that women think, or even men sometimes, just about friendship, but specifically women, What do you hear from your clients and your friends or even your daughters, right, as they're teenagers and trying to figure out the friend thing? What are some of the myths? I threw out a couple, but what
Mhm.
else would you add?
Yeah, one that I encounter often with my clients and then with my daughters, it's just come up recently, is this conversation of among their group of friends, you're all together, but like, who's my person? I need my person. Um,
A
and
best friend.
yes, yes.
Hmm.
And I think absolutely there's times in our life where we encounter someone who can move. I like to use just the word picture of like a container. Like if a container has lots of different sections to it, um, like relationships that can move and flow in and out of lots of different avenues in our life. People who hold
Hmm.
our story, people that maybe live in our neighborhood and also our friends and our colleagues, or we go to church together, or our kids are on the same sports teams. Like you're just seeing them a lot and you see them in different spaces with different groups of people, and
Hmm.
your relationship is being strengthened because of that. So I think there are people that you encounter in your life that can flow in and out of lots of containers, and maybe because of that really step into that, like, oh, this is my one person. But I think what's more common is that we have lots of relationships and lots of friendships that help to round out what we need. Because I mean, I just think about the amount of pressure that is. I mean, I've been on the other side of that conversation where someone has said, like, you're my person. And as much as that's flattering and I love it, I have tended to feel like I'm gonna let you down because I can't do all of the
Yeah.
things you're wanting me to, or maybe I'm not as available in as my life is changing and I'm entering new seasons to meet that specific need. It doesn't mean that friendship is not foundational and going to be core in my life, but to have the expectation of you're going to, I mean, I think the implied, what I hear in the implied message with like you're my person is like you're going to meet everything that I need, or you're always going to be available when I need you. And that
Mm.
might very well be true, and that might be someone's full desire, but that is a lot of pressure on a relationship. And so, um, as I've just kind of talked with my girls about this, what, how we navigate this with friendships is I'll sit down and be like, well, tell me about this friend. Why do you love them? How do you feel when you're with them?
Mhm.
What do they add to your life? And it's great for them to be able to put words to that, to identify that if they haven't ever really acknowledged what that is that they enjoy in that friendship. And then we like move on to another friend. And then but you have all these other friends and how are they different? And
Mhm.
um, just this idea of like a bouquet of flowers that I think they're a flower is beautiful on its own and it has its own uniqueness, its own smell, its own color. But when it's put together in this beautiful bouquet of lots of different colors and textures and heights and widths, there's an added beauty. And that's how I see friendship, is just
Mm.
being able to know that there's something amazing and a gift in each person that I meet that is different than me, that's going to help me to understand myself better too and pull out parts of me that maybe I haven't thought about. I have friends that love to do things that I would never think of on my own, but when I meet them in it, I'm like, "Oh, I love this. I didn't realize this part of me," because
Yeah.
they drew something out of me that I didn't know was there. And so, um, yeah, that's probably the biggest myth that I don't know if it's a myth. I think it's a true desire for people, and
Mhm.
some people have it, but it doesn't mean you're missing the mark if you don't end your life with your bestie who's been there through thick and thin in every situation. But to know that we have a myriad of friendships and there's actually a huge benefit to our life, when when we're around other people, that we can bless them and they can bless us.
That's so good. And it really is a huge myth of and even for these young girls particularly, but even us older girls, there's this desire of like, who is my person? And
Mhm.
realizing that even in marriage, we talk a lot about that in marriage counseling and marriage coaching. It's just this is supposed to be a covenant lifetime lean on, but gosh, they can't be your everything. And so you
Right.
need some friends. And so we
Yes.
call it diversification, right? So when you're both suffering and you can't hold each other, you have the Lord and you have God, and we work on that friendship too. But then there's also diversification of a few friends, cast out a net. Like, do you have at least five that have a variety of ways, and maybe one of those could be there for you? We're going to talk a little bit more about when friends are going through hard times and how to walk with them. But before we do that, I was thinking about CBI, Connie, as you were talking. thinking about the ways that even different core values. So we use the core values. If you're not familiar with CBI, we use it in everything. We use it in our counseling practice. We use it in our executive coaching practice. We use it even in our Courageous Girls nonprofit. If you are raising a daughter, go check that out at mycourageousgirls.com. But at Living Wholehearted, it really is the core of helping us shape. When we understand who we are, we can live with an integrity of that. And then we can also honor who other people are. And so I'm going to go through each of the CBIs and then you add your little nuances, Connie. But I was thinking like merchants, we can have a larger bouquet. We merchants have capacity. We're relational, love and truth people. And we really can have a wider breadth of people in our life and have capacity for that. We like variety by nature. We like different haircuts. We like different jobs. We want our days to look different. So we also want our friendships to have a variety. When you look at innovators are our wisdom and our compassion people, and they're really the ideas part of the community. So they love friendships where they can go deep. Merchants want to play and laugh and celebrate and have fun and throw parties. And the innovators want to have solve the problems of the world. I love my friendships, but I only need maybe a few that can go deep. And innovators don't need a lot of friends, but they need a few that will go to the depths because they're such deep thinkers and processors. And then you have your bankers who are our detail. They're our knowledge and justice people, and they're all about fairness and equity. And so it's really hard for them to have too many friends because they really do feel a sense of, if we go out for coffee and I pay for you this time, a banker really wants to make sure that they're going to pay their way next time. They're keeping tabs on the fairness and the equity of this relationship. And so having too many that are more shallow is really hard for bankers. So they really like to have more of that quality and intentionality with a few. And then you have builders who are our doers. They're our actions and results people, power and faith. And builders just really are people that don't have a lot of words, but really want to do action. So they want to go for a hike. They want to do something if we're going to hang out. So sitting and just talking for hours about the problems of the world, like innovators would kill a builder. And so they're really intentional about when they're going to hang out with someone, they want to do something. Now, we're not just one of these CBIs. We have a variety based on our unique fingerprint that God made. But knowing our bends helps us to kind of look at our friendships and go, what kind of friendships do I really need? And who is actually capable of meeting that? And like I told you, my other friend who's a banker, innovator, builder, when we hang out, we're either walking or we're really talking intentionally. So that's why the hanging out in the big parties or the big social gatherings as a lower merchant for her was harder. And I love that she told me that. So there's my overview of how I see friendships through the lens of our wiring. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm just thinking like what a gift self-awareness is, and that is so helpful in this. Because if we don't have language to communicate, we might feel something innately because it's part of who we are. But if we don't have shared language to communicate this to someone else we love, sometimes we miss each other unintentionally. So, I mean, I just love the example of you and your friend and of her saying, okay, this is who I am. This is what I need, for you to be able to see her fully and say like, okay, yes, I think that's true about you. That makes complete sense. That you experience a different version of relationship when meeting in that place, but then also acknowledging, okay, I can meet you there, but there's this other part of me too. So this flex of back and forth. And so just the gift of each core value as we grow in our own self-awareness, so we can honor what we need. But then the second piece of that is like being a good friend is honoring what somebody else needs too. It's not about us. Like, we and for some of us, depending on our wiring, maybe we only think about what someone else is thinking, or maybe we have a tendency to think about being really in touch with our own needs. But it's a both and. And I think with friendship, you mentioned this earlier, I think mutuality is huge. I think that's where that's where you have a really solid friendship, and is that there's a give and take, and it doesn't have to be It makes me think it doesn't always have to be 50-50. It makes me think about something I've heard Brene Brown say about just checking in at the end of the day with her husband, like, I'm coming in and I have 20%. And he's like, well, okay, I hit 100, so I'll fill your deficit. And then we have those days when maybe we're both really low, and then we have to be creative about how we're gonna meet that need. But I think with relationships and friendships specifically, as we're talking about here, um, when there's room for both people to
Mhm.
say, this is where I'm at, this is what I need, can you give that to me? And there's honesty on the other end that if someone can't meet that need exactly how they're desiring, they're going to problem solve to figure it out, but they're there for each other. And it's not about keeping track, about it being equal all the time. It's the heartbeat of saying, I'm with you. I'm with
Mm.
you. Life happens. And we can't predict when we're going to enter a really difficult season. We don't get a notice on what's coming, right? We just have to navigate that. And that's, I think, what's so beautiful about healthy friendships, that there is
Mhm.
mutuality. And then when we grow in our own self-awareness, and then we can also honor who we are and then honor the people around us. I think that's how um, we learn to be a good friend, and the world needs more of that. I think that's something we're never going to grow out of until our dying breath, to have people that know us and love us and can be with us in the good and the hard and everything in between.
I love that. And the mutuality is hard to come across because I would just say in general, most of the time we can't give what we haven't received. And so
Yeah.
sometimes we have to recognize that we might be the first friend for someone to practice that with. Um, and I think I want to speak specifically right now to more leader types, maybe even those specifically that are working in church ministry of some sort. But sometimes we get confused between what our friends, or maybe even the person that works and all their friends are at work. But we get confused between who are friends and who are colleagues and who am I ministering to and we kind of lump everyone together. And I just had this conversation with a pastor, and it was actually a male. And when I was saying, hey, you need to discern between you, God, and maybe your spouse can help you a little bit, but who is actually a give and take friend, mutuality, and who is someone that you are to give to but not have any expectations from. That's somebody that we're ministering to, that is our ministry,
Mm.
our mentoring, our discipleship, and even as parents, that's the way it is. I mean, some of us would love our kids to give us a little something back, but the way God designed it is like, you're the parent and you give and you don't expect back. And maybe when they're adults someday, you'll get a little thank you. But that's really key for friendships, discerning who are people you're to serve and then have low expectations on what you get back for. And then there's also the people that we go, man, I give all the time and I don't get anything back. And I thought we were mutuality. And I would say those people probably either need to grieve and let go of, or have an intentional conversation with, to say, hey, I would like a little more mutuality. But I think doing inventory, I heard you say earlier, just kind of assessing, you do that with your girls and their friendships. I think it's really important to do that as adults, to kind of assess, and how often, especially as merchants, we collect people naturally. And there's all different layers, but really going, who are my friends who can do the mutuality, or who I actually want to verbally invite into that and say, hey, you're someone that I really get something from, and I hope I give to you. How can we continue to invest in each other?
Yeah. I mean, I just want to even put language to and agree with you about it's not as common. So
Mm-hmm.
even just to set an expectation that as if you're in relationships and you're really processing this like mutuality piece, just to have a realistic expectation that maybe you're going to have 1, 2, 3 close friends that can really do this when it's a goal to work towards.
Mm.
Um, but that it's hard work, right, Tara? I love that you spoke to just that it isn't easy and it's maybe not that common. And even as those of you listening, maybe you're doing an inventory assessment of your relationships and what those look like. To have a realistic expectation that maybe you're going to have 1 or 2, maybe 3, that there's the same level of mutuality. It doesn't mean you cut everybody else out, but I
Mm-hmm.
think as we age and our capacity in certain seasons is not as much, and then maybe opens up again later. I think in the I'm going to call it the narrow hallway, in the narrow hallway of like lots of lots of people needing time from you, and there's a lot of give.
Mm.
I think there is wisdom in really thinking about the relationships you have and the friendships you're investing in, that and the things that you really need, that you have a few where there really is mutuality. And it doesn't mean everybody else doesn't get any time with you, but
Yeah.
when you're in a closed-in space before it opens up again, assessing what you need the most, and just giving yourself the freedom to name and to say, like, this is how I feel when I'm with this person. And um I I feel encouraged, I feel seen, I feel valued. And then hopefully you're doing that for them. I mean, asking yourself, like, are they just not giving, but there's a give and take. And to really foster and invest in those relationships. And the more that we do it, the easier it becomes. The more, and if this is
Mhm.
new for you, like you mentioned, maybe this is like you're the first person who's showed someone else what it means to have true mutuality and friendship. And that's okay. But once they catch this, once you taste it, it's one of those things that once you have it, you won't go back. And so
Mhm.
wherever, if you're on the receiving end of that and someone showed you that earlier in life, like, that's such a blessing. And that's one that you keep giving in
Mhm.
hopefully every friendship that you're
Yeah.
in. Um, but I just don't, I just think we can't overestimate, or over, emphasize is the right word, overemphasize how important it is to have a few trusted people who really see us and know us, specifically in seasons when there's not a lot of margin, so that we're not alone. And then we're building, and then when that opens up again, we have clarity on the
Mm.
kind of friend we are and the kind of friends we want to pursue.
Mm. I love it. Okay, so you said something that I think is really important for us to emphasize again, and I think it's the idea that we learn from lots of different ways, but particularly as women who kind of put our kids sometimes, I think in Christian culture, our kids before ourselves in lots of ways. But women in general tend to have a nature. It's called the mother load, right? We just have the nature of like our kids need us and everybody needs us before ourselves. And one of the things that the paradigms I'm always trying to help women with is to say your kids won't learn what friendship looks like unless they're seeing you do it. So if you wait till your kids are out of the house and then you start building friendships, one, it's really lonely. So I've walked with lots of women who didn't invest at the level that they wish they did looking back. So if you're in a season where your kids are home and you're kind of like, who has time? Who has time, right? For friends, start small, but think long term of modeling. It's good for your kids to see, hey, mom's going to go have coffee tonight, or tell them when you get together while they're at school, here's what I did today. I went for a walk with so and so. They're one of my good friends, and here's why. Or we're going to go deliver a meal to so and so because they're, and important to us and they're good friends. But what our kids are picking up is, if you come home every night and you're exhausted and you only invest in them and you guys just show up at church, but you never connect with anybody, that is a generational thing that just gets passed down and then they're going to have to learn. So Connie, as you hear that and you think about, again, we're modeling maybe not even just to our kids, but also to those that we mentor or the other women who are watching us, especially those that are leading. I'm curious what comes up for you. I mean, there's so many lies and myths that we tell ourselves of why we don't have room for friends.
Yeah.
But what keeps you making time in the long run when you're like, okay, in the end game, I'm gonna take this time here now to invest in this friendship because in the long game, what's the result? What's the outcome? What's
Yeah.
what's the ultimate goal?
Yeah. I think it's in my current season of life, it is very full. And so oftentimes I can feel like it's selfish to
Hmm.
go time away, or, put something on the calendar to go visit a friend I haven't seen in a long time, to do an overnight, or even, trying to squeeze it in between soccer drop offs. I'm like, oh, I'm tired. But like, so I will ask myself often, like, oh, okay, am I doing too much? Is this something I really need? Am I just trying to meet someone else's expectation? But what's really a helpful thing for me to kind of gauge what has lasting impact or what has really affected my soul at the end of the day is I'm not faithful to do it every day. I try though, but to do the end of the day, just do the prayer of examine, to really think back on my day. Where was there joy? Where did I experience difficulty and suffering? What am I grateful for? What is the Holy Spirit speaking to me? And I find that when oftentimes the things that are hard sometimes are connected to isolation, and then the bright spots in my day are when
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm with somebody else, because it helps pull me out of my own situation. Um, and I'm entering into something
Mm-hmm.
with someone else, and I'm able to remember that I'm not alone, and that my circumstances um are different than somebody else, but we all have good, we all have hard. But I at the end of the day, when I think about what has left an impact on me, and because I am a high merchant, it's people. It's people and
Mm-hmm.
it's relationships. And although I love a big crowd and it's fun to be, have lots of energy, I think to have one-on-one time, intentional time, to be seen and to be known, and to see and to know somebody else. And so um yeah, I think that this is work that we have to do, to ask ourselves, like, what is the motivation? If you're pushing yourself too hard to meet other people's expectations and you're exhausted, that's not good. Um, are there times when maybe you do something that in the moment you might not feel like you're asking yourself, like, am I going to get an ROI on this? But then you realize, oh no, that's actually is exactly what my heart needed. So I think as we're aware of, like, what are the things that pull us out of the ruts that we can find ourselves in, or where we get
Mm-hmm.
isolated and alone, where we start to see unhealthy patterns when we're with other people who are healthy and making good choices. I mean, there's a natural, like, effect on that, sort of like it just pulls us in that right direction. So who are the people that do that for you, and maybe invest your time there. And I love what you said about modeling to our kids. I think we, as a parent, uh, I long for my children to have good, healthy friendships. This
Mm-hmm.
is even I hope someday they get married. I don't know what the future holds for them, but I really think, like, healthy friendship is even the foundation for them to look for to build a healthy friendship that has romance in it. It is your person, but, like, that is a key component. So that starts now. So that's really important thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they catch that. It's something that's caught because we invite people into our home and we invest time in our relationships and we model what that looks like. So um, I think even if that's the impetus, sometimes when we feel tired, or knowing, okay, I do need other people. How can I meet that need, even if I don't feel like the best version of myself? But again, that's where when we have good friends and there's give and take, we can show up as we are. We don't have to flex and pretend and put on a front. We get to
Yeah,
say, I'm here and I love you and I'm having a bad day. And
I love it.
yeah,
Yeah, grace is really something that I think we have to practice over and over in friendships, and and I think we need to continue this, Connie. And we'll probably, if I can keep you for another 45 minutes, we'll do a second end, and we'll talk about kind of, again, the conflicts, and when friends are going, when seasons change. There's a lot of just ebb and flow to healthy friendships. You mentioned, like, if I need to take a rain check, we had something scheduled today and it's just a bad time. With healthy friendships, I can say that. I can say, you know what, I am at my wit's end and I'm so sorry, but I need to bail on you. I love you and I'm so sorry, but I got to take time, or my kids really need me tonight, or and in healthier friendships, a friend, hopefully I would respond, if you did this to me, Connie, I would hopefully respond to say, hey, get it, love you, take some time, I'm praying for you, and let's reschedule.
right,
And the key is not to let that get a seed inside me of I'm not important to you, or, I can't count on you, I can't trust you. Now, if you do that to me every time, Connie, putting you on the spot, but if every time we had something on the books and something comes up for you, I'm probably going to move you into a different category of friendship. And we're going to talk about those categories in our next time as we talk about red light, green light, yellow light friendships. But I really think that grace is a part of the every so often. In general, we need to have freedom to not have to jump every single time someone
right,
needs us, and to be able to say, I can't be there for you right now, is a part of healthy friendship. And not always, pulling ourselves with our bootstraps up, but trying to stay connected to where I am today. And is my yes, yes? am I no, or am I kind of lying through my teeth by like saying yes, but really I mean no? And
Right.
I want friends who are going to be honest, and I want to be a trustworthy, honest friend as well. And so that's part of friendship that I think women get confused along the way. We're not taught well enough of how to actually be honest and truth tellers with each other. And I really want to tease that out a little bit more together. So are you willing to hang out a little longer for another
Easy ask.
time together? Yeah. Okay. But before we wrap this one up, and you just think at the end of the day, is there one more principle, Connie, you're full of all kinds of wisdom. Is there one more principle that you think, okay, if you've learned anything about friendship, what would you want to tell someone to say, keep the main thing the main thing?
I would just say when you're entering relationships, play the long game. I think sometimes we go too fast too soon. And sometimes that's because we're excited and we see the potential. But just, I think when you think about someone that you want to invest in and get to know, be patient. And if they are the kind of person that you really admire and you pursue, be willing to initiate. Don't sit back. I know there's a risk of rejection. It's true. But I think when you get clear about what you want and the kind of relationships that you want your life to invest in and to receive from, to be clear about that, and then be slow and steady, because building good things takes time. And so not to put so much pressure on things right away, just to let them grow organically. And first and foremost, I mean, I think this is so important, just to be the friend you want to have. So if I'm living in a rejection narrative and I'm hanging back and I'm being timid, if I'm on the other side of that, I'm in the receiving end, then that friend isn't pursuing me. So be the friend you want to have, and have that be the lens that you move forward. And then, be patient, because good things take time to build.
Yeah, good things take time, and trust is only built from time and consistency. And you need some time, and you'll see about the consistency of that relationship. So such good wisdom. Play the long game. And sometimes relationships don't last longer than the season. So we'll talk about that. Hope you'll come back next week as we pick up, or not next week, actually, we're doing every other week episodes now in 2024. So in 2 weeks, we'll pick back up this conversation, and we'll talk about more of the like nitty gritty of the hard in friendship, and when we need to kind of set boundaries, and how do we actually come alongside friends who are going through really difficult seasons, or when we're going through a difficult season. So hopefully you'll hang in with us. But in the meantime, if you want to reach out, Connie is at Connie@livingwholehearted.com. I'm at livingwholehearted.com as well. You can check out, we'd love to come alongside, especially those of you who are leaders who are trying to hold and balance your influence in the wake of also being very human. And then you can check out, we do women's cohorts, and we've got group coaching. And then for those more wounding places, we've also got our professional counseling team who's here for you. So check it out at livingwholehearted.com. And in the meantime, as Connie reminded us, is be the leader you would follow, or be the friend that you want to have, and continue to lean in and initiate. Leadership is really about initiation, and none of us want to initiate. I think that's also a myth, Connie, is thinking some people, but I learned how to initiate by moving and having to start over again and again and again. And it was a skill that I learned that comes easy now, but to many, they think, oh, I'm just going to wait for a friend to pop in my lap. And honestly, it won't happen. You gotta step out and either pursue or say yes when somebody pursues you, and give it a try. So we're praying for you. We appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to the fruit that this will bring in your own life. Until next week, continue to be the leader that you would follow.
Well, did you know that we're not just podcasters? One of the best ways to connect with Terra and I and our whole team at Living Wholehearted is our website, livingwholehearted.com. There you're going to find the books that we've written, our e-courses, executive coaching, organizational development, and professional counseling services. And then one of our favorite things that we're up to these days, our Wholehearted Leadership Cohorts, where we take groups of leaders for 1 to 2 year journeys together. It's amazing. While you're there, for fresh content, make sure that you sign up for our e-newsletter. That's where we're putting out stuff every month that you want to keep close with. So visit livingwholehearted.com.
You can also join us on socials at living_wholehearted on Instagram, and we are Living Wholehearted on Facebook. You can also follow me at Terra Mattson on Instagram. We love to engage with you personally there, so make sure you reach out. Leave us a review if you're enjoying this podcast. And if you're a mom of a daughter, check out our nonprofit, Courageous Girls, at mycourageousgirls.com, where you're going to learn about the biblical, clinical, and relational wisdom, where it's helping you walk with your daughter at every stage of her growing years, helping her to be courageous and confident in a day such as this.
Hey, thank you for caring about being the kind of person and leader that lives with integrity.